This week in games, PlayStation cancels a God of War live service. Marvel Snap got caught up in the TikTok ban. Is Marvel Rivals next? And our theories on the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 235. I'm your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
I'm the people. We're the people. We represent the people.
We do, indeed, all the time. 100% of the time, always, right? Even when we take beloved video game classics and just take a dump right on all over them.
That's more your business than mine.
It is more my business than mine. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Of course, like, subscribe, share it with a friend. We are on all mainstream podcast services and YouTube, so make sure you find us wherever you get your podcasting goodness and hit that follow/subscribe button. And make sure you interact with all the content so that you, yourself, the gamers, can have your own 2 penny segment, your 2 pennies put in. I want to start this week off with a penny from the audience on our Square Enix enacts employee protection policy to combat customer harassment video that we posted earlier this week. Dead Poet Mischief 637 comments, finally, someone not misrepresenting this as SE Square Enix hates customers crap. This is a typical policy, and so many grifters are spinning this as woke DEI crap. Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we do here over at Two Penny Games. Is we are not here to grift you for your money. We're not here to spin false narratives. We are here to give you insight, thoughts, opinions about the industry and gaming culture as a whole. Some more thought out opinions and thoughts given to you. Some more analytical critique on video games. Something that actually has intellectual resonance. Something that will actually push the culture, the conversation, and the intention of games forward in a positive way. So make sure, if you're here for video games because you love video games and you want video games to continue to succeed as a medium and to grow past where they started and where they are now, make sure you hit that subscribe and join us in that conversation. Right, Connor?
Indeed, because that was weird, because I hadn't really heard much of someone spinning the whole Square Enix thing as DEI stuff or
I hadn't either.
Stuff. I had not.
You know,
so I don't know what circles you're going around. I'd stay away from them myself.
I'll say, because I replied to that comment, and
Yeah.
then I saw he replied back. What he replied with didn't make any sense.
He seemed like he was talking about some person that he watches for news.
I guess, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our whole intention here is to get to the truth of the matter and sort of provide insight that is more plausible and more realistic and less hate-filled than a lot of the gaming circles that you'll see online. So make sure you subscribe. We're always interested in pushing things forward, not pulling them back. So
That's the general idea, yeah.
That's the general idea. But a lot of people online sort of misrepresent that, and they'll see a black person in a video game and think it's a bad thing. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyways.
Well, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, Tavin.
Yeah, but sometimes you should shut the fuck up.
Tell them that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with 2 topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. We record this show live every Monday afternoon over on twitch.tv/2pennygames, where we record all of our podcasts live. We just finished up this week's episode of The Piggy Bank. Make sure you see that on Saturday, 8 a.m. Central Time. But this show, if you can't catch us live, it does go up every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. YouTube.com/@2pennygames and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure you follow us on social medias down in the description down below. Specifically, with the impending TikTok ban that's happening. We are on TikTok for how long? Who knows? Because the U.S. government is being the U.S. government. And so we may not be on there much longer. So make sure you follow us over on Instagram. We've already been posting Instagram Reels to that platform. So follow us over there if you want to get all the gaming coverage up and ready for your viewing pleasure over there as well. Connor.
Yeah.
How's your week been, my friend?
It's been good. It's been good for the most part.
Good.
Yeah. There was a sad thing that did happen.
Yeah?
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. And that was the passing of filmmaker David Lynch. Famous director.
Sure. Yeah.
And, a person he was one of the greatest artists of our time. And he's a person that I want to see more of his movies from him. I've seen a couple. I've seen Twin Peaks, which is what he's most well known for, and the following film that took place later, including the third season, which is television that it happened not that long ago. It's kind of crazy. It's one of those things that you kind of are confused as to why they were able to get it on television, because it's such a weird fucking thing. But it's certainly not marketable to most people, and yet they were able to get it onto television as his last project, but also movies like Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet is amazing. David Lynch had a lot of really surreal, weird imagery and messaging through his film, all of his films and all of his works, generally centered around the idea that a piece of media, his films in his case, but it can be anything, like what we do, video games, what we talk about at least, they are the manifestations of people's ideas. And the way you interpret those things is entirely up to the person who watches it. So he never really tried to give a hard line, this is what's going on in my films, this is what you're supposed to take from it. You're supposed to kind of find that out yourself. And that exploratory aspect of art is one that he valued very highly and spread to others, advocating for them to do such a thing, such as video games, because he had a big influence in the video game industry. Some obvious, some not so obvious. Like, for example, Alan Wake, very heavily based off of Twin Peaks, the setting of Twin Peaks, and the surreal, evil, dark force from the woods factors into that as well. Deadly Premonition, a game that has very weird dialogue and a very weird style, Lynch-esque, I guess you could call it, and it's all based around a detective, which Twin Peaks is about a detective. Also, Link's Awakening was inspired by David Lynch's work. It's a very weird one. You wouldn't expect it to be, but they actually...
Oh, no, I get how that... Okay, now I get how that fits. Yeah.
Small town stuff. A lot of it was from Twin Peaks, since that was a tour de force of television at the time, but it opened the gateway towards his movies inspiring people like Hideo Kojima, who recently has been going off on Twitter, watching Blue Velvet, watching the episode 8 from season 3 of Twin Peaks, which was, I said the whole season was kind of crazy, was on television. Episode 8 is literally one of those things you watch kind of slack-jawed, and you're like, what? And, such massive loss of art, such a massive influence on art, and it's one of the few times I can see a celebrity death happen and feel, an actual sadness, like a person passing away, which is very rare. And that shows the touching effect he had on everyone else through his art. But yeah, just had to say something.
Respect. Rest in peace, David Lynch. That's a hard one. Yeah, I saw the timeline react to that. I don't have a good what do you call it? Like a reach back, like a connection. I don't have like a strong connection to any David Lynch work. Haven't seen a whole lot of that stuff. But yeah, I saw the world, the timeline, all react to it, and a lot of heartbreak going around. So respect to David Lynch. Rest in peace, David Lynch. So that was tough.
What joke?
I added. I was gonna try and tie it into my week was okay. My dog was shitting everywhere, but it just didn't seem appropriate. So,
that's the cool thing.
I'm gonna do it without doing it.
That's probably more respectful to Lynch than not saying that. So go ahead. Your dog shit. The dog did shit.
The dog is sick or was sick. Hopefully was sick and has finally recovered. But she's just been shitting all over the apartment, diarrhea everywhere. It's been a terrible time. So I'm hoping she seems okay so far. She ate this morning. She didn't. We didn't feed her last night to hopefully get her stomach to settle. And she seems to have been fine so far, but she hasn't pooped yet. So we got to figure out how to get her to poop.
We're going to start smelling it here in a second, I feel.
If she poops. Yeah. I mean, she's going to get up and whine a whole lot if that happens. So,
Pause the show for that.
She's asleep right now, so I'm assuming that she's good. So let's hope that she's good. Anyways, Connor, let's get into the news, my friend. Let's go ahead and get right into topic number 1. My first penny of the day. Sony cancels more live service games from 2 studios. It's worth noting, ladies and gentlemen, that if you want to read all of the stories that we read here on the podcast, they are written by our very own Connor Elliott here. So make sure you subscribe to our Substack, which is where you can find all of our written works over at TwoPennyGamesNews.substack.com. That's where you'll find all of that. So make sure you subscribe and read up on all of that as Connor posts throughout the week, right? Not 20 minutes before we start recording.
No.
Right.
Like starting about 24 hours before we start.
Maybe you should do it as the news hits, Connor.
I should.
Maybe
Yeah.
you should. Anyways, Sony cancels more live service games from 2 studios. Bluepoint Games and Bend Studios were supposedly the developers behind the games.
That byline was outdated, I will say.
Because they are?
Yeah.
Yeah. A Bloomberg report from Jason Schreier confirms 2 live service titles were canceled, quote, following a recent review by Sony Group Corp's PlayStation. Schreier confirmed that of the 2 studios, Bluepoint Games and Bend Studio, Bluepoint had been working on a God of War live service title. A reevaluation of Sony's future has led the company to become wary of live service titles, pushing back a number of live service titles in late 2023, eventually followed up by the cancellation of a live service game based in the Last of Us series and the massive failure of Concord, which had been heavily funded by Sony. Alternatively, the unexpected success of Helldivers 2 showed the model of live services titles isn't dead yet, along with the PvP extraction shooter Marathon set to be released sometime in the future. Schreier reported in early August 2024 on gaming podcast Frames, that's supposed to be Frames Per Second.
But they said it's called Friends Per
Is
Second.
it called Friends Per Second?
Friends Per Second,
I thought it was
yeah.
called the Frames Per Second podcast. That Marathon was in development hell. Bend Studio community manager Kevin McAllister would comment on the cancellations, tweeting, quote, "We still plan on creating cool shit." I also saw early reporting today, before we went live, that neither studio knew that their games were getting canceled until the news.
I have no surprise at that at
Which
all.
is not the first time that Jason Schreier's been ahead of the companies,
Yeah.
in its reporting and getting word before the employees do. So the big takeaways from this is that Bend and Bluepoint were reportedly working on live service games. I would argue a waste of both studio talents.
Yeah, especially Bluepoint.
Especially Bluepoint. And Bluepoint specifically working on a God of War live service game. Now, Bluepoint, we do know, spent 2020 and 2021 working on helping out development with God of War Ragnarok, spending 2 years helping out with that project. Maybe it was 21 and 22, but you get the point. The game launched in 22, earlier 22. It spent 2 years working on Ragnarok, all right? And then Bend, we didn't know what was doing. Bend Studios last known for, of course, Days Gone, a critical flop, semi-commercial success. At least the players were fairly satisfied with that game, but overall, I think seen as a rare PlayStation miss in the era of where they were just putting out banger after banger after banger.
Yeah.
Clearly, right now, they are not in that era anymore. And so now, with the cancellation of this, you look at the first-party studio lineup and what we've already gotten from first-party studios, what we're going to get being Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, and Intergalactic. I'm missing one other one. I'm missing something else, but Wolverine. And you look at that and go, all right, that's the rest of the PlayStation 5 generation.
Yeah.
We know exactly what's going to happen, which then allows you to look at PlayStation 5 as a whole so far. And this generation is not holding up. It's not really pushing the medium forward in any way, like sort of we saw with the PS4, and that's disappointing.
And I think the live service model is kind of a part of that stagnation.
I agree.
It makes these companies see what seems to be just an easy profitability in getting someone to play a game, potentially for free, but one that you're going to entice them with those microtransactions.
Yeah.
But, at a certain point when everybody's doing something like that, the impact's going to go down. The amount of money you're specifically going to get is going to go down unless you really have a solid product, like Fortnite's been able to carve out for himself. But, I mean, you hear less and less things happening in Apex Legends. When was the last time we've really gotten this, a big update from there?
That people were excited about in
Yeah.
Apex? It's been a while. And my understanding is, I forget what Respawn is working on now since their Star Wars games got canceled.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's a tough one to hear. And their Titanfall sort of reboot got canceled. Yeah, the industry's in a tricky place when it comes to live service games because we do have examples of success. You named it in the article. Helldivers 2, huge success, specifically with PlayStation PlayStation's been struggling to find footing in this era as well. On top of that, we covered it recently. Shuhei Yoshida, former head of PlayStation Studios, who then headed up PlayStation's indie department for the last 5 years, has left PlayStation officially in the last week, and then did an interview with Kinda Funny. And there's some, a couple of headlines popping off about that. The Bloodborne remaster slash remake was kind of circling around because he commented on that, and basically saying, yes, we hear that you want it. We don't have, as far as I know, there's no plans to really move on it because it's a tricky thing because Miyazaki has a lot of pride in that. So there's probably an element of like, don't touch that. That's mine. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, who would produce that remaster slash remake? It's hard to tell. Shuhei also commented on the idea of there being too many remasters and remakes in the gaming thing. And he was like, guys, just because something gets remastered or remade doesn't mean other things aren't being made. Like it just allows us to keep revenue flowing, get a little extra money so that we can continue to reinvest in these other projects and so forth. So that's why you get so many Last of Us remasters and remakes and so forth like that, because it fattens the pockets and allows us to get new titles like an Intergalactic out the door. Okay. And on top of that, Shuhei, back to this topic at hand, said when he was head of PlayStation's first-party studios, his perspective was, Call of Duty's killing it. Why compete with that model? Why even do that, So, you really saw in his era of being head of PlayStation Studios a move away from multiplayer titles. You saw less kill zones. You saw less resistance games. You saw more Spider-Man, God of War, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima.
The recognizable
Horizon Zero Dawn, that big era of PlayStation where they were really firing on all cylinders. A large part of that was due to his influences being head of PlayStation Studios, and with Sean Layden being CEO of SIE. And then we move into that Jim Ryan era. Mm-hmm. And that Jim Ryan era is where it gets really, really tricky, because we do still see some successes in the Jim Ryan era. The launch of the PlayStation 5, God of War Ragnarok.
Well, you can argue the launch of the PlayStation 5 was not a strong point, but you can also balance that out by saying how the time was.
God of War Ragnarok, Last of Us Part 2, sort of the tail end of the Ghost of Tsushima development with those last two titles that I just named. But God of War Ragnarok, Returnal, a lot of great acquisitions such as Housemarque and Blue Point and Bungie, falling under that from the Jim Ryan era. And Shuhei Yoshida commented on that is when Jim Ryan took over, PlayStation actually got a lot more funding, got a lot more access to resources so that they could expand on the idea of doing multiplayer live service things. That's all a Jim Ryan thing, is the live service push. And it's not taking away from what the other guys have already been doing. It's just additive. So Sony gave PlayStation a lot more resources for that. And as of right now, it looks like all those resources are being squandered.
Because when you look at them, how many of them have successful live service titles?
One.
Yeah. Well, two. Destiny,
but that's not a PlayStation thing.
Yeah, it's not built off their own,
yes.
The backs of labor. It's, it was multi-platform. They bought it.
That was an EA success. That was a Bungie success.
Yes.
Can Bungie reproduce that with Marathon? I don't think so, because you're chasing a trend that really wasn't that big of a trend to begin with. Extraction shooters, sure, are fun, have their place, so I've heard. But what is the extraction shooter?
Well, it's certainly not going to come from Marathon. One of the core reasons, you were talking about like God of War live service titles. When you're going to make one of these, it has to make sense. Yeah. Last of Us made sense because it had a multiplayer game that originally functioned as just the usual multiplayer that was attached to a single-player story.
But let's be honest, we didn't want that. We just wanted another mode like we got in the first game.
Yeah.
That's all we wanted.
And clearly,
Naughty Dog felt passionate and wanted to spin it off and expand it and grow it. Remember, the Factions wasn't supposed to be its own standalone thing. It was supposed to be a mode, and then it was a mode that was going to come later, a la Ghost of Tsushima Legends.
Yeah.
And then it just kept growing and growing and growing until it turned into its own game. On top of that, Jim Ryan was like, yeah, I'll put Last of Us as a live service game. This is weird. Blue Point working on a live service game, one, that's squandering Blue Point's talents, and it's not at all what any of us really want. And two, we don't want a God of War live service game. Who wants that?
And to tie it into that, going back to Marathon, I know there's not like a lot of fanfare for the original game that this one's based off of, but it is like as opposite as you can get. It's a single player game. It's very exploratory. It's got a big focus on gunplay to make it a PvP extraction shooter. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Why don't you...
Does that matter?
It does matter because it's like, well, maybe you're limiting yourself by making it a sequel of this thing when it could just be a standalone element.
Let me rephrase the question. Does the original Marathon game matter?
Apparently, it's very high quality and slept on.
Does it matter?
What does that mean, though?
It's an irrelevant game. It's a game that slept on and stuff. Nobody heard about. We didn't know about Marathon until Bungie Marathon got announced.
Well, then, more to my point,
like it's not like a System Shock or Deus Ex or like Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines or things like that. Like, it wasn't like a game with like a cult following that like people cared about, really. This is a game that came out, sure, it was quality, but it went away. It faded in the background. So taking that IP and then turning it into something else, I don't think is a problem because the IP didn't matter in the first place.
I think it is a problem because their mindset of having to go off an existing IP to then make an extraction shooter shows that it's kind of the same thought process behind God of War live service. You know, it's just... It makes no sense for the kind of game you're trying to make.
Bungie's Marathon, I'm going to tell you right now, Bungie's Marathon is going to have nothing to do with the OG Marathon.
It's not.
It's not going to be in that world. The rules are going to be different. The rules of the world are going to be different.
So why make it Marathon based off that?
Because why? Like it's just IP. Like,
I think it's just indicative.
You're like... The Arcane Prey is more successful than the original Prey.
Yeah.
But those games have nothing to do with each other. They just stuck a name on it. Right? So like it doesn't matter. But... because it had an IP tied to it, it garnered more attention in the announcement of the game, right? But when it came to the actual execution of the game, that doesn't matter. I would argue that is the same for Marathon.
Well, Prey actually had like a bunch of people that played it back in the
day. Yeah.
Marathon's an obscure slept-on game. Prey was an in-the-time game that could, easily attract old players while also looking new on its own.
Yeah.
And interesting to new players.
Yeah, but like... Listen, man, they grabbed an IP and they stuck it on something. Like it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt the game. It's not going to draw it back. It's not going to do anything. Like that point, I don't think is relevant in this case. God of War is a different point.
No, that all ties into it to show that in combination with God of War, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They just want live service titles, and they're not being focused with it. I mean, remember we talked about how they had 12 live service games.
Yeah.
Why would you need 12? And they cut back on those.
And even when they had the 12, they only envisioned 4 or 5 working.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, is that a good method of how to make games? No. I can't conceive of that at all.
No, I don't think so. This has been
faulty from the very beginning, and I don't think it's going to end anywhere like positive because Helldivers 2 was an entire surprise to everybody and PlayStation. The other game that's kind of in that same mode.
And to your point, Helldivers 2 stayed true to what Helldivers was.
It did, yes. Yeah. Which I think made it more fun when they were able to build on top of it. The key difference being is that this is the same exact studio and probably the same exact people who worked on the original Helldivers working on the second one. But yeah, this is... I wouldn't be surprised if we see like no more, maybe like 1, 2 more.
I mean, we got to have the conversation. We've got games that are announced already.
Yeah.
Haven Studios Fair Games. Does it make it to market? I don't think so. I think that game's dead in the water, dead in the crib. I don't even know if we see it come back in whatever this next PlayStation state of play, presentation, experience, whatever PlayStation has next where they have a presentation for it. I don't think we see Fair Games there. I think they're going to, within the next 3 to 4 months, cancel Fair Games and shut down Haven Studio, which that sucks to say, but that's what it's going to be. Marathon, I think is a different story because Bungie's pedigree is large enough to where they're willing to see that forward. But if the rumors are true that it is in development hell, when are we going to see that game? When are we going... Not only are we going to like have that game released, when are we going to see Marathon next? It could happen at this next state of play, or we could not see it for another year, depending on how long this takes, right? And in that, how many other titles are working that we don't know about? We didn't know about these 2 titles. We still don't know what Ben was working on, who I feel so bad for.
Ben screwed all
Ben Studio... history with Siphon Filter, which was a successful IP for the scale of what Bend is, right? And then go on to work to make an Uncharted game, which was received fairly well. That I still think that Uncharted game is better than the first one, certainly. Mm-hmm. And then not really be able to get out of the shadow of Naughty Dog. Days Gone completely flopped, and then spend the last couple of years being like, all right, well, you're going to help make Last of Us Factions. You're going to help make an Uncharted remake. You're going to help make all these other things, right? And then only to then be given a live service title. Now, whatever that is, it is what it is. But now they got nothing. So what has been delivered to PlayStation in the last couple of years? Bluepoint at least has the benefit of being like, hey, we've delivered 2 really great remakes that sold really well and were critically acclaimed. So Bluepoint is safe, I think, right? They're safe. It's just unfortunate, maybe some layoffs, but it's unfortunate that, they had a game canceled and so forth. It's probably smart that they had this game canceled. I don't think it would have been a success. But Bend is not safe. Bend has not provided something for PlayStation in many years, right? The best thing that they've done is a Uncharted spin-off game for a system that failed. Not their fault, but still, right? What has been produced that has been a top-selling thing for PlayStation? Not a lot. And I don't think that's on them. Talented studio. They've got a pedigree of great games, but they've had major leadership changes. They've not had a clear direction in the last 10 years. And is that right? 10-ish years, right? They've not had a clear direction of their own, and they've been stripped of every opportunity to be able to grow and develop into a studio that could really provide a strong IP. I am in the camp, and I do believe with the creators of Days Gone that if they had a second chance at the bat, they would have knocked it out of the park. That's my belief. Because Days Gone, from all accounts, not a terrible game. Little uninspired, little generic, had some mechanics that some people liked and some people didn't like, right? But overall, and a story that was kind of hit or miss. But overall, I really do believe that Days Gone 2 would have performed. But they were never given that chance, so we live in a what-if scenario in that. And in that, what do they do now? I don't think Ben Studio survives the year.
It might not. And that'll be PlayStation will see this as, oh, well, they didn't deliver, regardless of what we did, so let's cut them and save a check, save some money. Layoffs, I think, are inevitable. I think that's going to happen. We haven't seen a downward spiral of that. Well, we've seen it slow down a little bit, but that might just be because it's the beginning of the year. Things hadn't really started kicking off yet. So there is a lot of potential for it to still be a bloodbath of a year as far as layoffs go. And I think Ben Studio might be one of the first ones to go, though it would be completely unfair. I just hope if something's going to happen to them, as much as I don't want it to, layoffs would be more preferable than a studio closing down. Because you mentioned Days Gone 2. That
never going to happen.
No, it's not. No, but they would have improved. Clearly, they had something there that they could have built upon to make a seriously amazing game.
Everybody liked the motorcycle stuff, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So expand on that. What could that be? I've said it before on this podcast. Death Stranding 2 is going to be better received than the first Death Stranding game. Because Kojima's Productions knows what they're dealing with. They know the formula they want to create. They know where they want to expound upon and so forth. And you saw an improvement from Death Stranding even into Death Stranding Director's Cut, where they added a bunch of new tools and a bunch of new vehicles and stuff to give a little more game to that game.
And in addition to that, you're aware of the channel Skill Up? They do YouTube videos.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah. Recently, he released a video of his hands-on preview. Excuse me. With 20 hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. He's a person who played the original game, and he admitted that game had some flaws, some bugs. It was also a really particular kind of game. Someone who wants more of that realistic element added to their games. And he's saying that the second one is that original game, but every single aspect is improved. Everything from what he said. And it's that same kind of vein of how game development goes. You make a game, even if it's something, as long as it has quality here and there, you can build upon that and fill up those potholes. You might not, but that's why you have second chances.
Right.
And Ben Studios, it was commercially successful, right? Or is it?
Not to the level that the expectations were high.
Oh, what are those expectations?
Sure, yes, but Ghost of Tsushima performed.
Yes.
Horizon Zero Dawn performed. God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us, all of those IPs from that generation of games performed, right?
Big titles.
Days Gone did well, profited, but it didn't perform on the level that they wanted it to.
And that's kind of the issue, because are they holding those expectations to be held by new games compared to God of War or Uncharted or Last of Us? Or are they, bringing it down and saying, okay, this is the first game.
Bend also was never Naughty Dog. They were never Santa Monica. They weren't even Sucker Punch, right?
No.
And so, to hold them to that level, I think was also a mistake.
If they did, because their expectations are vague.
Right.
They never say what they are.
And expectations are so weird. To be on the other side of that curtain must be so interesting to have those conversations. Shuhei Yoshida, on his interview, again, talked about Horizon 1 to Horizon 2, while Horizon 2 was still quite successful with Forbidden West. It impact the way they thought it would. They thought it was going to go bigger. They thought it was going to deliver even larger than the first one did. And it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that might be because it launched in the same week as Elden Ring, right? And so now we have this funny little joke of Horizon being cursed and launching the same week as a highly influential, impactful game, a Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring, and then something else happened when the VR game got released that I forgot about. So it's just funny that keeps happening, and you could probably put some credence to that, but I think also pandemic times. And being PS5 exclusive in a time where not everybody had a PS5. It's just, I don't know, it's tricky with all of this. Going back to Bluepoint, God of War live service. What would that even look like?
You play as dwarves.
Oh, God, I don't want to do that. I definitely want to do
I don't even know.
I don't know. A Diablo clone, maybe? Or no, because it would have had that same camera angle, right? Because it would have worked in the same engine and same typical gameplay system. But
did it confirm that?
No, nothing's been confirmed. We don't know. I'm hypothesizing here, right? So but Bluepoint worked on God of War Ragnarok, helped make that game what it is, right? So you would have ideally would have kind of played the same way. We would have just dived deeper into the RPG mechanics, I guess. Does anybody want that? That's the worst part of the God of War games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know what that would have looked like, and turning Bluepoint into a live service studio would have been such a waste.
Kind of criminal.
I love Bluepoint's works with remakes and remasters. Now maybe they want to make something of their own,
aren't they? Didn't they announce something like some weird
I think it was
sci-fi
this
game?
I think it was this. No, they didn't announce anything. We've had no idea what Bluepoint was doing.
Okay, well,
we've had zero idea what Bluepoint was doing. So yeah, I don't know, man. I would have rathered any other alternative than Bluepoint becoming a live service title. That was so disappointing to see. And on top of that, with an IP that nobody's asking for, and it circles back to your point of what is PlayStation's obsession with IP? I guess I get it because Concord, new IP, new characters, new faces, and nobody cared, right? Zero people cared. Even though the game was quality, but nobody cared to even give it a chance to see that quality, right? So now they're looking at, and then compare that with Helldivers 2, an IP, a 2, and it worked, right? But you just can't predict what's going to hit and what's not. It's impossible. You can have all of the marketing teams in the world with all of the speculation and projections and all these types of things. If we put out this amount of commercials at this level of quality, it will produce X amount of dollars. Sure, maybe, but often probably not. The expectations can never be accurate in any true form or fashion, especially in games. So it just puts us in this tricky spot of what was all of this for? Now, we are in a new era of PlayStation now with Herman Holst and the other guy, whose name I always forget, now being co-CEOs of PlayStation. But we're still feeling the effects of the Jim Ryan era, clearly. We're going to continue to feel those effects for the next couple of years, probably. And it's probably going to be a while until we can turn this boat around. We're definitely going to be on the PlayStation 6 before we get any type of sort of resurgence from PlayStation Studios. So now I ask you, Connor, is the PlayStation 5 the worst generation of PlayStation?
It's shaping up to be so far. It just doesn't have the sauce as they did.
It doesn't.
Even PS4 time, which you could argue was the weakest before then, but still super strong.
No, PS3.
Yes, you're right. Never mind. No, well,
PS3, you see a lot of really great IPs, but none of them really break through outside of what Naughty Dog is doing.
I think it's too soon to tell. By the end of it, PlayStation 5 will still be held higher. Because people because people at least will enjoy the games a lot. People still buy games.
But what
on PlayStation
games?
5.
What the argument is always what games. There's nothing new about PlayStation 5 outside of Returnal.
But the generation does include the console, which is the home console. Back then, the PlayStation 3 was competing with the Nintendo Wii, the Xbox 360. Now it's the definitive, of course, Nintendo's its own space.
Right.
But they're the guy. There's no console war anymore like there was then. Yeah. Console war. So they're the big guys right now. They are the console supreme. That's something.
But they won it off the back of the greatness of 4. It's weird that you even brought up the 4. The 4, I think, is the best generation.
Yeah, no, I forgot about the 3. I was I would say 2 because they kind of was formative. Or
2 you could attribute to sales, and 2 did perform as well, really well as well. I mean, to me, it's 4. To me, 4 is the greatest. Right?
I think you could still argue 1 solely because of its importance in game development in general. Yeah, it goes beyond just Sony doing their Sony thing.
PlayStation 1 moving into 3D graphics, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9,
countless titles you had under your belt.
Escape. A bunch of JRPGs and wonderful titles on the PlayStation 1. Absolutely, 100%. But I don't know. I feel like PS2 kind of expanded upon that. PS5 should be what the PS2 is, right? More of what came before. That was great. But just expanded upon in every way, and with more variety, more new IPs, more fresh IPs, and these live service titles were supposed to be that, and they're not.
No.
They're just not. We're even talking about the Helldivers 2 success. Helldivers 2 sold more than Spider-Man 2. Whoa, that's incredible. But has Helldivers 2 long-lasting impact now that we are close to a year out, been to the level and degree of what we would expect from other live service hits? I would argue no. But I still think where Helldivers 2 is today outperforms even what PlayStation was expecting for that game.
Yeah.
Right? Which, again, brings you back to expectations. What the fuck does that mean in this medium? Helldivers 2 is outperforming every metric they could have possibly expected. Concord failed every metric that they were expecting, So what do we do with that knowledge? What do we do with that information? What do we do with that revenue? And how do we continue to evolve this? I think Marathon is the only one that makes it out the gate from here on out. And even in that, I don't know if Marathon makes it.
Yeah, it might not be the highest quality of its kind.
Do you think Marathon launches? I think Marathon launches.
I think, it's too much. It's too late now.
You think so?
Yeah. I don't think it's like the live service titles we're hearing about here.
Okay.
Those had to have been, not too far along, not as much money put into it as Marathon. I mean, when did they announce Marathon? Years ago.
2020.
What?
No, it was recent. It was more recent than that. I was in Nacogdoches. 23 then? Must have been.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't recall.
Early 20. I think it was in early 23 is when it was announced. It was announced the same showcase as Concord and Fair Games. And you know what's funny is the Concord trailer was so limited that I was expecting Concord to come after Fair Games, and it came well before that. Do we see Fair Games? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think that one's dead in the crib.
Marathon was 2020.
Yeah. So Marathon I think we see probably next year, 26. Maybe even this year. Who knows? Depending on just what PlayStation is willing to commit to it. They may just be wanting to get it out the door. But man, I don't know. I don't know.
Up in the air for certain.
Connor, let's move right along to our second biggest topic of the day. And my second penny of the day, we have the Nintendo Switch 2. We got a first look trailer. We did a reaction video to it. It's live on the channel now. You can go and check that out. We kind of talked about all of it, doodads and so forth. We know very little information outside of the leaks. We know there's been reporting that Nintendo has been pissed off about the leaks. A lot of what do you call it? former marketing heads or whatever have come out.
They used to work at Nintendo, and they used to work at Nintendo of America.
Yeah, have come out and said, yeah, no, they're mad. They're like, we don't know because we're not talking to them, but based off of our experience, they are fuming.
Because they're protective.
Of course.
Very well known to be.
Yeah. So Nintendo Switch 2, we got a first look trailer at it. I should have prepped it to where we could see it on screen. That's my fault. I like it. I like the look of it. I like the direction we're taking with it. I like sort of all the newness of it. Listen, it's pretty much the Nintendo Switch 1, but bigger again, or bigger now. Which is, kind of all I really wanted. It looks like we are improving the Joy-Cons in form factor, in how they connect to the Switch itself. We're getting a new noise. It's less of a snap, more of like a clap, a little clunky, satisfying noise. I like the noise. My only thing about it is like, I personally appreciated the boldness of the full Joy-Con being colored, and they've inversed it now, so it's mostly black with like highlights of blue and red, and even in the red is more of a salmon now.
Yeah.
I would have preferred a heavier red personally. But yeah, I like everything I see. I think it looks clean. I love that that little like dip in between where the Joy-Cons connect to the Switch and the actual Switch itself. That's gone. It's now just a straight line. It just looks cleaner. It's rounder, it's smoother. It looks like a cleaner console. It looks like a sexier console in that. And then of course they hinted at what we've talked about via the leaks and some other stuff, the mouse support with the Joy-Cons. That's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. I love the listen, man. There's nothing that I'm seeing here that is saying a misstep for me. Everything looks like we are trending in the right direction again with Nintendo. I'm not seeing any weird Nintendo decisions.
They were already kind of on that mindset though, because the Switch model worked.
Yeah,
and if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I believe they had expressed interest that they didn't want to be as like different with it. Didn't they say that publicly?
Maybe, I don't know. It might have been like thinking in an interview of like, hey, like we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, exactly.
Connor, what do you think about the Switch 2 so far?
I mean, it's pretty nice. I kind of agree with you with the inverted color bit, but it's a nice, easy way to differentiate it from the original Switch, while at least keeping that same scheme of blue and red.
It was a clever way of saying these are Joy-Cons 2.0.
Yes, yeah. And other versions of those controllers will show up. I'm sure they'll have like an addition of get it with the full color controllers. A little bundle thing.
Maybe. Who knows? I mean, they can do whatever they want, right?
They can, yeah. They you know what I think might come from this? What if they announce a new Pro controller?
That's what I was wondering about. Where was the Pro controller in this? Because I went back and I watched the OG Switch trailer. The Pro controller's in that trailer.
It is.
Where's the Pro controller here? Are we just doing? Is it the same?
What if they don't? But that would make sense.
Or are they just waiting until the Nintendo? Oh, we didn't even get to the news. We didn't even get to the news of that.
Yeah.
April 2nd.
Yes.
Am I right in that date?
It's my birthday.
Is it? Oh, that's cute. Yeah, that's fun. Is the Nintendo Switch 2? What do they call it? The event. Let me actually get to the end of the trailer here. We can get the actual wording.
That's
correct. This is where they also said Nintendo Switch 2 will play Nintendo Switch 1. April 2nd, Nintendo Switch 2 Direct for that, and then Nintendo Switch 2 Experience series of hands-on events held around the world. I saw they're doing a New York, an LA, and a Dallas, Texas event.
After you like almost.
Oh fuck! I forgot to look that up and try and get in line for that.
Yeah.
Damn it!
We still do that.
We got to do that. We got to do that.
I remember when I had said we could come around us. You said they never come to places like this. They never do.
Why would they? They did
because they're Nintendo. They're global.
I would have thought it was going to be a Vegas thing. Is my thing. I would have thought Vegas, but they chose Dallas, Texas. So shout out. So maybe we can get our foot in the door, hopefully, and show it for that. That would be really cool. So yeah, Switch 2. That's all the news. Is that it exists. We're gonna find out more April 2nd. I think they've also hinted at in this trailer, the classic Nintendo Switch intro outro with the red and then just like the slide down, the click in for the snap. I think now it's going to be they hint at it with when they have the Joy-Con grip on screen, which I also like the redesign of that as well. Is the Joy-Cons kind of coming out at a not a 45-degree angle, whatever this angle is of like a 12-degree angle. It kind of pops out. That's going to be the new thing where it like claps back in like that. I imagine. Yeah. Listen, I'm liking everything I see here. Let's get into speculation territory here, right? So they showed off what appears to be a new Mario Kart game in this. Very limited images shown from that. I'm sure we're going to get more April 2nd.
A new map and new cars were the only thing that were really shown from
Donkey
that.
Kong. Donkey
right?
Kong's got a redesign. Something we didn't pick up in our reaction video, but the internet was quick to point out. He's got like more sunken eyes. He looks so tired.
I know.
He looks so tired. So yeah, this is a new Mario Kart. We can't really derive anything from it. I assume we're just getting Mario Kart 8 with not again, but don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe worked. Do that again. Expand on it. We covered years ago at this point. This would have been 2 or 3 years ago at this point. Some leaks had happened for what was a potential Mario Kart 9, where they were doing something to do with 2 players again, but each player was controlled by a different, I don't know, like kind of a la Double Dash a little bit, but it was going to be different. I don't remember the details of that anymore. I'd have to go and look it up. But yeah, we covered that a long time ago. So I'm curious if any of those rumors or leaks still held up and are in the final form of whatever we're getting here. But yeah, listen, I'm excited for a new Mario Kart. I'm certain we're going to get a new 3D Mario with that as well. All of that is probably going to be shown off at the Switch 2 Direct. that we're getting in April. So now, Connor, let's talk about it. What do we think this first year of the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have in store for us? Let's start with, when do you think it's coming out?
I think we see it in like June.
I'm alongside that. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Even if you go off the timeline of the Nintendo Switch 1,
Yeah.
Announcement trailer in October, event in January, released in March, April. Look that up.
I think it's
forget.
April.
Yeah, something like that, right? I think it was March. Because wasn't it like March like 27th or 17th, like that? Because it launched with Breath of the Wild. Launching with
March 3rd.
March 3rd. Wow,
Yeah.
really early.
Early, yeah.
So just based off of that timeline, announcement in January, event in April, May, June. What was it? January to March, that's 2 months. So April to June, that's another 2 months. All of this just kind of makes sense, right? Like we're kind of working off the same timeline, the same pattern of success. So they're really like, yeah, we're just sticking to what we do. This trailer gives us a lot less information than the first trailer did, but again, that had to sell you on what the Switch was.
Yes.
Everybody knows that now. So now all they have to say is it's another one.
Here's what it looks like.
Yeah, here's what it looks like. That's all they had to say with this trailer, and that's all they've given us. So it's not until that big event in April where we're going to get all the details of what's new, what's different, hardware specs, what's it going to be able to run like, and all that.
Because there was that electronic show, CES, I think it was, that we talked about last week, where the model was revealed shortly afterwards, kind of seemingly in response to it, is when they released this trailer. You had pointed out they had probably made this. They had certainly made this.
Yeah.
But they probably weren't going to release it at the time they did, when it, because of CES coming out and doing the model, and trying to take this, like, the attention away from them and put it into the other people's mouth.
Nintendo is so calculated with their moves. I don't believe this is in response to leaks. Like, maybe it was, but I don't believe it was.
It seems too timely.
But the timeline still, like, the timeline adds up in a way, like, it fits the pattern exactly from the first Switch. So, like, I think they're just pissed that, like, all these leaks are happening, so their big reveal wasn't as big as they wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you gonna do?
We don't really care, to be honest, because it's a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
you're fine.
You're gonna get excited. It's gonna sell 100 million units, over the course of 5 years, and so forth. So yeah, like I don't think those leaks made Nintendo move at all. I think they're just pissed that it happened right before their shit. But we'd have to be on the other side of the wall for that to even understand that. What do we launch with?
Well, the Mario Kart game seems inevitable at this point.
I agree.
Showed it a little bit. Metroid. It has to be Metroid, right? They've amped that up the most out of all of their big titles.
Okay, well let's talk about it. What launches on the day and what launches in the window? Let's say 2 or 3 months window of Switch 2 launch.
Mm-hmm.
What launches on the day?
Besides Mario, I just think minimum Mario Kart and Metroid.
That's where I disagree with you.
Metroid.
I don't think you step on Metroid like that. I think this is the time.
Out the gate, one of the few big titles they have?
Listen, we'll see, because we have one trailer for Metroid Prime 4, and it looks like a quality game, but it doesn't look like mind-blowing or anything like that. But if you launch the same day as Mario Kart, Metroid Prime 4, nobody's going to give a fuck about. Like, sure, the fans will, the hardcore gamers will, but Metroid's never been a cream of the crop series. Mario Kart is. And especially after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, yeah, people are looking for the new Mario Kart.
But with being a new console release, you have only that to contend with something that already has name brand recognition behind it, hype behind it. It's going to be one of the only games you can really play when you first get a Switch. Now, let's be honest. Both you and me and many, many other people, not just like pro intense gamers, are going to get it day one. They're going to want it as soon as possible. And if you only have certain games out there, well, you're going to play them. I remember during the PlayStation 4 times, there was Infamous. That got a lot of attention because it was one of the only games there. Warframe, I think we can attribute one of its reasons why it's taken off the way it has is because it was one of those games that I remember was only available, like one of the only games available for like 3 months besides Infamous. And so I was, constantly playing that.
Infamous wasn't a launch title.
But it came out like shortly afterwards. It was only one of the big games that had.
Killzone Shadowfall was the launch title for PS4.
Yeah, and that would into that.
Yeah, that didn't really work.
That was not a good game at core of it. Which is
I think it was a good game. It just wasn't. It was fine. It was just fine. I think there's two moves here. I think you separate the launches by a month or two, right? I don't think it matters where Mario Kart lands. You either launch with Mario Kart or you boot Mario Kart by 2 or 3 months. It really matters because I think Mario Kart's going to do what Mario Kart does regardless.
Yeah.
What I think really matters is what does Nintendo want with Metroid Prime 4? That's what the real choice is. If they feel super confident in what that development team has done with Metroid Prime, then and they feel like, oh, this is going to be a new bar. This is going to be on the level of the original Metroid Prime. We want this to sell like hotcakes. Then Metroid Prime 4 is your launch title, and you boot Mario Kart 8 by a month or two, right? And then that one will generate all the revenue in the fucking world, right?
Right.
And then put the hyper focus and all the attention on Metroid Prime 4. Again, that's not going to sell units like Mario Kart will, but everybody's going to buy the Switch 2 for the Mario Kart anyway. Right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter where Mario Kart lands, whether it's day 1 or it's day 45. You know? Metroid, if you launch with Mario Kart on the same day, gets devoured, and it does not get the attention that Nintendo wants. Now, again, that all entirely depends upon how much push does Nintendo want to give Metroid. If Mario Kart is the launch title, and Metroid Prime is in the launch window, with a month space in between, because you got to give Mario Kart space, right? If there's a launch window of Metroid Prime 4, that tells me that they think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a quality game, but it is not going to be the Animal Crossing New Horizons of Metroid. It's not going to be the Breath of the Wild of Metroid, right? It's just going to be a quality Metroid game. That's what that tells me. And then I think you end the year, holiday season, with a new 3D Mario. Which
that's definitely going to happen.
I think so as well. Yeah. Right? Like, because that's how you have a banger first year of Switch 2, right? Is Mario Kart, sure, Metroid, and then 3D Mario. And then year 2, new Animal Crossing, maybe a new Zelda or something. There's gonna be Zelda something somewhere in here.
I know.
Whether it's a smaller title or a big full-blown title. I think we also just got Tears of the Kingdom last year. No, 2 years ago at this rate. 2 calendar years ago.
Yeah.
You know, at this point. So by the time year 2 of the Switch rolls around, it's possible we have another open world Zelda game, but it would very much be a Breath of the Wild 3, not a new Zelda game.
I think that's what they said they were going to do, is a new Zelda game. I thought that was their intention.
I don't know. From what I hear is their intention is to continue the open world format of it. But what I mean by Breath of the Wild 3 is same map again.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do that. It doesn't feel like you could get away with that a third time.
No.
You know? Which makes me think that a Zelda of that stature is much further away. You know? I think Tears of the Kingdom remaster is more likely somewhere in there. And you also put that with, we know that Wind Waker and that Twilight Princess are ready. We know. Like, it's just sitting on a shelf.
I want it.
Yeah, I want it too. So I think year 2, you sprinkle in the Zelda remasters just to have it happen. And then maybe you launch with a Tears of the Kingdom remaster, or maybe it comes within the first 6 months or something like that. I think all of that makes sense. Any ideas, any thoughts, any things you think this doesn't add up? It makes more sense to do this?
I mean, all of this can be hit or miss. It's kind of
100%. Yeah,
Nintendo operates on their calendar, whatever that might be.
It's an unpredictable calendar. Splatoon 3 is big. Splatoon has been big for a while, right? It's their key multiplayer franchise, I would argue, right? Arguably Mario Kart, arguably Smash Brothers, but I would say Splatoon is the one where it's like, oh, we're getting our friends together and we're playing that, right? Splatoon 4 has to be coming, right? After the success 3 saw with all those expansions, all those updates and so forth, Splatoon 4 has to be coming.
It would make sense if they're releasing that pretty shortly or on the day of Switch 2, because it's a game that gives you a lot of meat to chew on for whenever your next game comes out down the line, because it's online play.
Yeah.
You have that with Mario Kart as well.
Yeah, that's why I think you separate them.
That's why it makes sense, but it also could just be the only 2 big games you really release, and that carries it, because it's built to be carried throughout the entire year.
Yeah, I could see it.
New updates, planned updates, I would think, if they had that going for them. They, seem to be, because going on the mouse that they've showed us, that indicates to me that for some reason that they'd want to facilitate online play more. I don't know exactly why. It just it seems like they're making themselves more for like a home system, which is when you would be more apt to do those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Because the other aspect of it that you brought up before we started, while we were setting up for the show.
Because the mobile stuff is going to come regardless.
Yeah, definitely. But it has that USB-C, the two in the back, which could you see some kind of like interactive pad being placed there?
Well, so for clarity, there's a USB-C port on the bottom, like with the Switch 1, but there's also one on the top now.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Who knows? This could be just another port for charging. It also has a 3.5 millimeter port for headphones, old school headphones with 3.5. But a lot of headphones are also USB-C now. So what if you want to charge your Switch and use your USB-C headphones at the same time? It could function that way. I'm seeing a lot of internet theories that it could be for a second screen, possibly, so that we can do 3DS emulation a lot easier. But what is this?
Or Wii U emulation.
Or Wii U emulation as well, yeah. What is this you're talking about? A pad?
Yeah, I was theorizing about what exactly that could be. Because my big issue with the mouse is how is that functionally going to work? Can it go on any surface? Do you need a dedicated space like this table here? Or wherever you're playing it with some kind of attached mouse pad function that might facilitate easier control.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that. There's a I'll see if I can find it in the trailer here. But there's a point where they're going over the new Joy-Cons. There's a little bit that looks like an IR sensor. This little square bit right here next to the plug-in port. Let me see if I can find a better example of it on the blue one. Does it zoom in on the blue one at all? Not really. Yeah, a little frame there. So I assume that little square there, I assume that's an IR sensor.
But don't you attach a feature to it as well? I'm guessing that works in tandem with it.
What are you talking about?
When it's rolling, it has like some other special attachment.
Yeah, that's the safety cord.
Oh, okay.
That's the wrist strap that you attach to your hand when you're doing movement stuff and so
outside of the main console,
right? Isn't it? That's what it. Yeah, that's 100%. That's a wrist strap. That's a wrist strap.
Okay,
yeah, 100%. So, I think you just Bluetooth it. Or wireless connection to it, right? Because they plug apart and charge and connect. They're already connected, just have that function within the Joy-Con and the Switch itself, To answer your thing, I think it works how every other mouse works with an IR sensor at the bottom of it that kind of tracks movement based off of you moving it and so forth.
Which goes back to the idea of them wanting to facilitate home play more, which is usually more associated with online games. Which would make sense for them to kind of dive more into that feature with not only the Switch 2 during its life cycle, but also during what comes first to get people to nibble on some meat.
So let's talk about it, right? That mouse function that was hinted or that was rumored and sort of leaked in all those leaks, and then they kind of reference it in the trailer with the Joy-Cons moving across. First of all, that doesn't look comfortable the way that moves. I am going to pause and let you talk here about what you think. So while I go grab my Switch, which I meant to prep before the show, and I'm going to go grab these Joy-Cons, and we're going to do it right now on the table and see how that feels.
Yeah,
right?
That feels.
But mouse functionality, I think that's interesting. I think that allows a lot more indie titles to come to Switch because, again, Nintendo Switch, great place for indies, phenomenal place for indies. But there are indie titles that can only be played with a mouse, right? Mm-hmm. Or played best with a mouse, right? And so I think this is a play for that. Bring more indies to Switch. Bring them all over to Switch because we know Nintendo's never cared about hardware, like being the beefiest, most technologically advanced hardware in the space. So it can't be so that Call of Duty can look its best on the Switch.
But they've always done something unique. They've always had some special kind of function.
Right, but it's not going to be power.
No, it's not going to be power.
No, it's going to be whatever the fuck this mouse thing is.
Yeah, and just how is that going to be facilitated into your games?
Yeah.
Besides the indie games, that makes the most sense. But they wouldn't just want to do it for indie games. They'd want to do it for whatever titles they got cooking in the oven because they want to make the most out of the console that they have. Because it's not the most technologically impressive thing, so you have to make the aspects of it that are supposed to be solid work.
Do you think this is a response to Steam Deck?
I think it's a response to the fact that more people are going into the mobile console market. Because there is the Steam Deck, there's the PlayStation Portal, Xbox is reportedly working on its own handheld.
Right, but the Steam Deck is PC.
Yes.
Right? And there was a report later this week that PC market is growing, and it's currently the only faction. It's currently the only faction that's currently growing in sales, right? The more people are buying more games on PC, right?
Yes.
There's more revenue being spent in the PC marketplace. Is Nintendo trying to get in on some of that? And are they trying to be the premier mobile gaming handheld on the market by also incorporating a mouse with their thing as well, because that's what I think the Steam Deck does the weakest is it's just it's a controller based thing, and then they have little touch pads for mouse work, but that doesn't work very well. The DualSense had the or even the DualShock 4. The touchpad on that is to mimic a mouse, but it doesn't work very well. Is this Nintendo's answer to that? Fuck it, let's just put a mouse on the goddamn Joy-Con.
Well, to your point about the PC games being more popular, Nintendo's kind of always had a key strength, which is adaptability. They came back from a period where most companies making a console wouldn't have, with the Wii U. It failed massive downgrade from the Wii, atrocious. And they ate it. They even went a couple years with that console.
They should have died.
Yes, and they came back. And what'd they come back with? One of the most highest selling consoles to date now.
Yeah.
And because they had that function of take it anywhere where you want to go, have the cool Switch feature that allows you to control different,
Well, let's be honest. They didn't sell us a console, like a home console. They sold us a beefed up handheld.
Exactly. And now going the opposite way. Oh, well, these games that use the mouse a lot more are going to come into play.
Yeah.
In the same way they adapted to make Doom on fucking Switch and Resident Evil as well. Well, not Resident Evil. Other game I can't remember that was a shooter that didn't seem like it would be on there.
There's a lot of Resident Evils on there.
Yeah, I know. That's why there was.
There was a Call of Duty on there at some point. I just don't remember which one.
Yeah.
When you're talking shooters, Splatoon is the one, right?
It's because it's their game. It's their Nintendo title. So, I see them just doing that.
By all accounts, we're getting Halo on Switch too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, that's kind of the thing. They don't want to really necessarily compete in a handheld mobile market when these other guys start coming out with their own things. They want to be able to be as expansive as possible, to have as many people play their console as possible. Adding an extra feature that can open up the path for PC games to be put on there, because a lot of PC games aren't really technologically challenging. They're pretty simple. Darkest Dungeon, for example, it was translated over to Switch extremely well. It was a PC game. It wasn't one that really required the mouse, but some other ones do. So it would make sense if they're trying to, really lock down that home console market in addition to still being a mobile one. But yeah, Switch is a confusing console, which is weird because it's we have a base model for it, but because of the unpredictability of Nintendo, we can't really.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to 100% predict.
We're gonna be this way.
Yeah, we're gonna keep spitballing, throwing things at the wall. But first, I want to go grab a Joy-Con and put it on the table and just see how it feels. Just see how it feels to move it around like that. Because the form of the Joy-Con is essentially the same. It's a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. So we're gonna go do that. And while I'm going and doing that, Connor, and collecting what I'm going to go collect, I just want to ask you, what possible functionality could Nintendo bring into their own games, their first-party games, their Marios and so forth, with a mouse in hand? Go.
Honestly, I don't really see them doing much with the mouse. I mean, aside from little gimmicks. Mario, they've always had like little fun games you can do within your games. The mainline ones always have, some special feature. Like, for example, it was the Mario Sunshine. It was the squirt bottle, the water backpack, and then it was the hat. I could see them coming up with something for the mouse function, but seeing as how it's a Mario game, and this seems to be more used in a home console setting, or at least a place where you'd be more accessible to have a mouse pad area, they wouldn't want to hold back a Mario game by including a feature that may or may not be successful in those kinds of scenarios. It makes more sense that some other random Mario game that's specifically made to show off what the mouse can do will be made, but not really their mainline Mario games. That might limit where you're able to play them. And now here we have the controllers themselves.
So I was trying to find the little plastic slide-on things that they do when you use a single Joy-Con or whatever, or to make the little side buttons more pressable and so forth. I couldn't find them. I think I've thrown them away. When I moved here is probably when I threw them away. So here we go. I got one here. Here's another one here for you. I'm giving you on the offhand, so I apologize for that. So we're gonna kind of do that. Let me find a little angle here. Slide it around. Let me try and see now. Plenty of access to like the bumper and the trigger, which can form as your left and right click. Right, plenty of access to that. I don't think that's too uncomfortable to hold. Now these guys are small, which is my biggest thing right now. And there's other buttons and stuff that you can have access. The face buttons you have pretty good access to, and so forth. So I could definitely see how that could work. So yeah, we're checking to see how.
It seemed like in the trailer, these ends of it were kind of like sloped out more.
Yeah, they're sloped out more. Maybe that's a little smoother for your finger to hit.
Well, because the issue I find is when you go to the right, you kind of feel some scraping, some unnatural scraping. Because forward and backwards, it actually has only a slight
smoothness.
bit of resistance.
The smoothness. Yeah, it's pretty smooth.
But then
Yeah,
you get you notice
now,
it.
now again, this bottom part has been extended
Yeah.
on the Joy-Con too, right? It's bigger and it's even got little platforms on the bottom and the top, right? Or like little extended pieces on the bottom and the top, which I think are interesting. Yeah. You see right there how like the bottom and the top of the Joy-Con are the parts that like stick out the most.
Yep.
That's fascinating. Why is that like that? So that's got to be the sliding part, and then all the technology is underneath, so they don't want to damage the technology through sliding, right? So yeah, I think that might fix sort of that. Yeah, I do feel a little bit of resistance left and right, definitely more than forward and backwards, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
And it'd be fixed with a slight controlled change, which is
I'll be honest, this isn't the worst feeling thing in the world. Now, it's not optimal. Definitely an actual mouse would be better, and they're certainly going to sell us some $50, $60 cheap piece of plastic that you can slide these into.
Especially because it kind of forms as like left click, right click.
Yeah.
Doing that as like a function seems awkward as hell. But again, that's the sucks.
Well, yeah, because you're using 2 fingers for it. Use 1 finger for it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you could do that too.
You gotta use 1 finger for
Not
it.
as satisfying,
that's gonna,
but-
yeah. Now, let me see, how big is the bumper on this bad boy here? Let me see if I can find. Let's see if we can
It seems
find
pretty
like
encompassing.
I just want to see. I'm gonna see like a hard. Ooh, wait.
Seems
Back,
thicker.
go back.
Oh, it has to be thicker. Which again might facilitate easier mouse holding.
Ooh,
Those
you
are
know
pretty
what?
big.
That bumper doesn't seem very big at all.
Is it not?
No, that's still skinny. That's a skinny guy.
Oh, the trigger?
The bumper.
Okay, yeah.
The
Oh,
bumper.
yeah.
The bumper looks skinny. Well, like this is a trick of the camera. That looks like the whole thing is a trigger, but it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah, that's a bumper and a trigger. So yeah, that still looks real skinny. Now, granted, these guys do look a little thicker. Joy-Con's pretty thin. These guys look a little thicker. Not much thicker, but a little thicker.
But longer as well.
Yeah, longer as well. So maybe that'll help with the sort of the mouse feel of it and so forth. You know what? Not a terrible idea. This feels usable. Feels usable. Especially like if they can figure out how to make the face buttons also work.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can kind of use your thumb and press these face buttons fairly accurately.
What would be really weird is if somehow they made it to where you don't actually have to touch the table.
No,
Be
you
really
got
fucking
to.
shit.
Yeah, no, because the human being is going to do that. The human being's not going to do this.
That's true.
Now, granted, like a mouse works that way, right? Like you can just kind of raise your thing like that, and it'll. I guess we can test it right now with the. Oh no, it doesn't. You got to touch down. Fascinating. No, yeah. I think you got to press down on it and like actually have it touching. You know what? Not the worst idea in the world.
You can work around it.
You can work around it. Now, Connor, to your point, you were talking about, you're like, you're not quite sure how they're going to function in their own Nintendo stylings and type games. I'm curious. What I'm curious about, can you use dual purpose here? That's where I think Nintendo's going to get creative and tricky with it. They are going to put a mouse in one of your hands and use your offhand as a classic remote.
Or,
so I'm going to be playing like this, use face buttons like this, and then I'm also going to be moving the mouse around like this. Now, I could see this with aiming, the first-person aiming. This might be the most optimal way to play a first-person shooter, third-person shooter, any type of that. This might be the most optimal because you get that twitchiness of moving this guy around. I got to retrain my brain a little bit, but I could definitely see how that could work.
in that same vein, multiplayer games, both serving as their own mouse, being able to control, usually you can only do one mouse on a screen at a time, but maybe it'll allow multiplayer functions on games that might otherwise not have them.
Ooh,
That's how the controllers already work now. You separate them, and
the
one
biggest
person controls one
problem
screen, the
with
other
that
another.
the biggest problem with that is if you're right-handed and you want to use the mouse in your right hand, you can't if you have the left Joy-Con.
That's true. Yeah.
That's a tricky thing. Now, is it really that? That doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good to use the offhand like that. But it's not. It feels better than being reversed on a gamepad. You know what I'm saying?
And honestly, you could, are you going to use the analog stick on that?
Not while it's in mouse mode.
So it's like, it could just be held. I guess it'd be kind of so weird, yeah.
Oh, you're saying grip it with the? No, that's worse.
Yeah,
I don't like that as much. No, I don't like that at all. No. So yeah, listen, they could get creative with this, and this could change how we play video games. It has that potential. Will it? Doubtful, but it could. Right? It very much could. Mm-hmm. And you start thinking about different games and so forth and how this all could be used and how it all functions. And I genuinely think Nintendo Switch 2 might be the ultimate like game system. Like it could be that. Not so much in power, obviously. Obviously, it's not going to like output the power that a PC rig is going to output.
Yeah.
But just the changing how you play. That's what the Switch 1 did. It changed how you play. And that's what Nintendo's always been fascinated in, all the way back to the NES. How do you play a game, right? How does it work and function in your hands? And every iteration, they've tried to change it. They've tried to have a new thing or do it. And Switch, I would argue, is the most successful version of that. Pick it up, play. Joy-Cons, break them out, boom, have them each in one hand. Plug them into a grip. Have a traditional gamepad, right? Or fuck one of them. Have just one in your hands, and it still functions for the most part. Not as clearly.
Feels like shit.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good at all. And maybe if it's a little wider,
that might be the saving grace of it. To be honest.
But the problem I think is that the joystick and the face buttons are too close together, so my fingers are hitting each other, and they're still close in the Switch 2.
Yeah,
they're still close in the Switch 2, so that kind of changes it. I like the Switch 2 buttons are bigger. I don't like the little candy-ass, little piece of shit, tiny baby buttons on the Switch 1. So getting that a little bigger, that helps out a lot. It looks like the Joy-Con's going to have a little bit more movement. Yeah, everything about the Joy-Con 2.0 tells me we're in for something really, really special with that. So yeah, I'm fascinated with what's going to happen. I can't wait to see. I'm very, very curious what that mouse functionality is going to do in Nintendo games. Just think about how Metroid Prime 4 is played. That's one where, like, the moving of the right stick, you move the gun like this, like old school, like 007 GoldenEye, like type things. Like, that's how those games play, right? So, like, it's not like the static Halo, your cursor is always on the center of the screen, and turning left and right turns the whole screen, right? You turn the gun, and then the gun turns the screen. How can that be played with a mouse? That'd be interesting. It's an interesting idea. How is it going to be affected? What is Mario going to do with a mouse and controller hybrid? And that's the thing of, like, they added on a new way to play. Now we have a hybrid play, combine both worlds. PC and console no more. Fighting no more. You have the best of both worlds with the Switch 2. I'm using a mouse. Everybody agrees. A joystick is better than WASD, right?
You got the ability to play at home, sit back and relax, like a console game.
Yeah.
Take anywhere on the go. And then, using the mouse function, you can play whenever you want, meet and fuck Kingdom. Anytime. You go on the internet, and then immediately just click, click, click. That's all it takes.
Connor. Get down to, let's get to brass tacks, basics of just how you play, right? That's what I'm always fascinated in. What's better? The looking around on a console or using a mouse to look around faster?
Using a mouse.
But what's better? Moving around on a joystick or WASD? Joystick, right? This is what I'm saying. Use both. Nintendo cracked the code. We're going to give you a mouse to look around as speedy and as fast and click heads as much as possible, but you still have the freedom of movement of the joystick because it's omnidirectional, right? There's not 4 directions, it's omnidirectional off of one input. You got to use 2 inputs on a keyboard. It sucks. Nobody likes it. And then you still have buttons. You can still press buttons, Connor. Switch 2 is going to redefine gaming.
All right, you said it here. You're going to be held up to that standard. If they do Switch 2 just as it is, as the Switch is, just with some mouse functionality to watch porn, then you're going to be feeling...
Christ.
If that's what the most substantial thing about it is going to be, you're going to feel real stupid.
Well, this is just my thing, is that... So we're playing Marvel Rivals, right? You and I are playing Marvel Rivals. I'm playing on a PlayStation, you're playing on PC. Because of the difference in functionality between console gamepad and PC mouse and keyboard, Marvel Rivals made the decision to where, yes, they have crossplay, but not for competitive.
Right.
So you and I can't play competitive games together because we've chosen different paths, different platforms as our way of playing, right? Switch 2, I think, will be able to run Marvel Rivals. It doesn't seem like the most high performance demanding game in the world, and I think it can be pretty easily toned down, right,
Yeah.
to do that. So I think the Switch 2 will be able to play Marvel Rivals. Now the question is, Marvel Rivals, if I can use a mouse with my Nintendo Switch 2 and, use that, am I still siphoned off? Are you going to siphon off Switch 2 from everybody else to play competitive platforms? Because me as a PlayStation player can still play with Xbox players in competitive, Or is Switch 2 able to play with the PC players because they've got a mouse? So it's an even playing field, right? Outside of, the performance of the machine.
Yeah.
But PC, anyway, you have to deal with a wide variety of machines anyway. Somebody is on the bottom. Somebody's always on the bottom trying to play, right? I don't know. Interesting questions. I really think Nintendo's... I think if they're going with the route I'm thinking, I really do truly believe that they are trying to crack the code and form bridges here and shorten the divide between PC and console gaming. I do believe they are trying to be the most premier hybrid gaming platform out there. And I think they're going the right way with it.
We'll see if any leaks happen, or we'll wait until that April 2nd.
April 2nd is when we're going to find out. Make sure you're tuned in, subscribed to 2PennyGames on YouTube to find out all about that. Connor, we got to get through these next two topics pretty fast because we've been going a long time here.
Lots of talk.
A lot to talk about. A lot of talk about with PlayStation, Nintendo. I think innately we're going to have less to say about these ones anyways, unless we just want to get on a rant about the U.S. government and how ridiculous the Supreme Court is. But we're gonna go ahead and jump into our third topic of the day, your first penny of the day. Take it away.
All right. Unresolved U.S. TikTok ban affects mobile gaming as well. Apps CapCut and Lemonade were similarly shut down. There was an update to this story today at 1:31 p.m. Marvel Snap developer Second Dinner updated players on the state of Marvel Snap, tweeting, quote, "We're actively working on getting our service back up in the U.S. and expect everything to be fully restored within the next 12 hours," end quote. So I don't really specify beyond the fact that their games were canceled for a short amount of time what exactly was the state of them. There you go. Continuing on. This past Saturday, TikTok and other apps owned by Chinese tech company ByteDance began to shut down in the United States in accordance with a ban signed by soon-to-be former President Joe Biden. The inauguration is going on probably right now, so...
It's already over.
It's already over. It already happened. So
it happens
at the time.
Yeah.
That's changed ever since then, but back in late April of 2024. The actions were reversed hours later on Sunday following assurances from future President Donald Trump, now president, that the app will remain available to U.S. users once he officially assumes office. Unexpected impacts of the ban in the mobile gaming sphere led to the unavailability of publisher titles, including Universe's Marvel Snap and Moonton's Mobile Legends Bang Bang, with both companies being owned by ByteDance. Prior to the ban taking effect, TikTok was to divest itself from ByteDance if it had any hope of continuing to operate in the U.S., and despite offers to purchase, the platform ByteDance refused to sell. Trump's previous history with TikTok, including issuing a vague sweeping ban of the platform in August of 2020, followed by a familiar second order for ByteDance to divest itself from TikTok. Legal cases would be swept aside once Biden assumed office that same year, but 2 years later, the next year, my mistake, but 2 years later, interest renewed beginning in June of 2022 when BuzzFeed News reported that U.S. users' data had been accessed from China. Following nearly 2 years of opposition from TikTok against the notion they act as an agent of the Chinese government, the House of Representatives would pass a ban of the company, followed shortly by the Senate and onto the president's desk. Donald Trump would later make this tweet where the day before his inauguration, you don't have to read the whole thing, the day before his inauguration, Trump posted on Truth Social urging companies, quote, to not let TikTok die. Can you go down a little bit? Oh, yeah, that's just for people who are yeah. It sums it up down there. Further, the day before his inauguration, Trump posted on Truth Social, urging companies to, quote, to not let TikTok stay dark, end quote, before confirming an executive order to be issued Monday to extend the window TikTok has to remain active by 90 days. Trump goes on to propose a joint venture in which the U.S. would own 50% of TikTok. Trump reiterates his stance at a Sunday rally in D.C., as seen below. ByteDance has yet to respond to Trump's offer of a joint venture, although TikTok publicly thanked Trump for his decision. So it's still up in the air because it's just an extension of the ban. But as it stands right now in U.S. politics, and some of you who watch this might not be involved in this all that much, you're fair to stay away from it because it's not the most relevant thing for you.
It don't make us happy. We're not happy.
But it's beneficial to take something that was overwhelmingly, disliked or at the very least confusing as to why they're singling out TikTok due to the fact that, yes, they did leak. There was information that potentially was leaked to China, but the problem is that U.S. companies are guilty of the exact same thing, and the standards here are different solely because it's held by a Chinese company and it's not a U.S. oligarch.
And let's be honest, the TikTok ban is not about national security or safety of U.S. citizen information. That's not what it's about. This is about censorship, control of information, and keeping United States citizens blind to the atrocities that the American government commits around the world.
They specifically said that on the, I don't know if it was the House floor or the
Senate floor. I feel like that's a pretty easy bipartisan view of things.
It is very much, yeah. They The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are lockstep in that notion. But even so, it was just this. No one wanted it. No one was happy about it. Certainly not young voters who they're the people you're trying to get. And Trump so far, as we've seen with his last election, did just that. And now here's another chance to cozy up to them even more. Here's this ban that you guys all use. The Democrats, Joe Biden, wanted to get rid of it. Here I am saving it. Look at me. And also turning it around as to appease the people who are upset with TikTok being around because it's owned by a Chinese company in doing the joint venture bit. Is China going to hop in the United States with that? I don't exactly know. Most likely not. So a lot of this seems performative right out the gate, but he does have an incentive to keep it going. It's just a matter of, will Trump be consistent? He is not known for consistency. So, as you can clearly see from years ago, him being virulently against it. Because at the time, the winds were that this is a Chinese, influence on the nation, and we got to get rid of it. Now it's people love this thing. Why are we getting rid of it? Everyone should be able to do what they want on social media because this is the land of the free. Woohoo! And now it's a win for him.
And so, to my memory, this is the first time I've ever, we talk about how digital services are banned or movies or whatever are banned in other countries all the time.
Yes.
There's a lot of countries where like PSN is unavailable because the country doesn't like it or whatever.
India had banned TikTok, and they were very authoritarian.
This is the first time, to my memory, I've seen America do it.
It is, yes. That's why it was also kind of alarming because we've never bothered doing this before. Now all of a sudden, on the pretext of security, we're caring about it now.
Now we can sit here and theorize what's going to happen with this next presidency and how the guy in charge is going to act around this. Generally, I think TikTok is done as far as America is concerned.
Not necessarily.
Now, hold on. The Supreme Court voted unanimously to uphold the ban. There was no 3-4 split or 4-5 split like there normally is or whatever, right? They voted unanimously to do that. They don't do that on fucking anything. So
they sometimes will. They hear a lot of cases. This is just one we're more knowledgeable about because it's one of the smaller ones. And again, this is a bipartisan issue.
Usually there's like a 2-7, a 1-8, something like that, right? It's I've never heard of a unanimous vote in modern times, right? So, to your point, sure, we'll see, and I could be wrong. I don't know every case that the Supreme Court resides over, right? I don't. But I'm of the belief what Trump is doing right now is performative. Nothing's ever going to actually be done. He never gets anything done. He personally, I believe, he lies his way to power all the fucking time.
Personally,
and then you never know who's watching. Connor.
I know, yeah.
So yeah, I think TikTok's done. Like, is there a way? There's an option. Yes. We've seen the TikTok CEO was at Trump's inauguration. We've seen him be heavily pro-Trump, I think, just to keep his business alive, obviously, yes. And so that he can make money. Because TikTok doesn't want to lose the American audience. But I also don't believe that TikTok's or ByteDance cares that much if they lose the American audience. Like, I truly, fully believe that like TikTok is global. It's worldwide. You see it right now on the TikTok right now. The Australians, the Canadians, the Europeans, the Russians, they're all going like, whoa.
Yeah.
They're gone. But all of those countries I just named, America is a small piece of the pie. It's not the biggest piece of the pie. It's not the one that's making them all the money. It's just not.
The thing that kind of turns that around on its head is the theories that are coming out from more astute political analysis, which is that all of this was planned.
Yeah, call me a dumbass. I like that.
No, that's not true. This is unconfirmed stuff. We don't know if this is true,
right.
But there are mutterings that all of this was performative and planned. TikTok's going to potentially benefit from something that Trump will do. I mean, he cozies up to oligarchs, to billionaires.
That doesn't make sense for the Democrats on the Supreme Court. They don't care about that.
They don't.
They're anti-Trump all the way.
But Democrats they're not the majority anymore. They're out now.
Right, but the Supreme Court voted unanimously.
But that's in regards to a ban that was up for debate, and that was brought to them by TikTok itself. So the president himself can still, what the Supreme Court thinks on the matter can become irrelevant. If he decides to say, I'm doing this new thing, which is going to be unbanning TikTok, you can certainly bet on the Republicans, who had voted for it originally, to not be for it anymore because they're Trump sycophants. That's basically what the Republican Party has come. They congregate around Trump. So it makes sense that if they were to do some secret behind-the-scenes deal, that TikTok would inevitably start benefiting from, and Trump would also benefit from from a perspective standpoint, from a public opinion standpoint, that both companies can walk away, both company and Trump can walk away both satisfied, which is possible. It's
Possible.
which would ensure TikTok would stay around, but not through the best means, not from a principle of people should be able to use what apps they want because it's America and you can do as you please as long as you're not harming anybody else. It's not based in that ideal. It's based off personal gain, regardless of how this all develops.
Sure, fair. All of that is possible. That sounds like a level of competence that I do not believe the U.S. government is capable of, and I especially do not believe the president is capable of.
The U.S. was capable of it, apparently. This has nothing to do with video games.
That was me transitioning back to video games.
You know what? I'll let you do that.
Now, to talk about Marvel Snap, which was one of my favorite games of the year that it came out, 22, I believe. Marvel Snap being banned or getting caught up in this is very unfortunate. As of right now, the servers are still down. We checked right before we started recording. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing if we can get that back, of course. I believe it will. This seems so TikTok focused, and I don't think the little guys like this matter so much. Now, there's a chance that the little guys matter so little that it's not even worth getting it fixed. You know what I'm saying? But I believe TikTok is really the only ByteDance company that's going to permanently disappear from the United States market. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe. I believe Marvel Snap will be working again within the next 2 weeks maximum, right?
Yeah. Well, they said 12 hours from the point. They made a tweet. It was today at it had. When I was doing the story, it would have been at 9 around then, and they said, "Hey, in 12 hours, it'll be back up." We're just having to.
Okay. So even by the time you hear this episode, that information might be outdated. But it's kind of crazy that Marvel Snap went anyways.
Yeah.
And let's expand that line of thinking, right? Which is where I wanted this topic to be anyway. So clearly, the American government allegedly is very much against the Chinese government having access into the civilians' information, right? What's the most popping game right now? Talked about it already.
Popping game? You
what's the most popping game right now? What game is popping? Nope. More recent. Just came out. December 9th. No, come on.
Marvel Rivals.
There you go. Marvel Rivals.
Yeah. They're owned by a Chinese company.
Yeah, they're owned by a Chinese company, Connor. Yeah. A different Chinese company. Yep. But still developed by and owned by a Chinese company, right?
Well, yeah, but
so
it's not off the chopping block.
For right now,
it's not off.
Listen, bro. Okay, I see. I see. If Marvel Snap can go, Marvel Rivals can go, and that's when I think the American people riot.
That'll be the moment, wouldn't it be?
This country's full of fucking idiots. You voted the wrong way. You fucking jackasses. Fuck Donald Trump. Moving on.
You're upset.
Our final topic of the day, Connor, your second penny of the day. Take it away, my friend. Oh, some good news. I like that.
Yeah, right? Sony contributes $5 million towards California wildfire relief efforts.
I'm sorry, can you take that headline one more time?
Sony contributes $5 million towards California wildfire relief efforts. Studio has declared support for relief efforts. Sony issued a statement on the Southern California wildfires as its proximity lies within the same state of Sony Interactive Entertainment's headquarters in San Mateo, California, wherein they pledged $5 million for general assistance to the public. In the tweet, Sony CEO Kenichiro Yoshida and President Hiroki Totoki say, quote, Los Angeles has been the home of our entertainment businesses for more than 35 years. We will continue work with our local business leadership to determine how best Sony Group can support relief and recovery efforts in the days ahead. That a little bit more. Both Naughty Dog and Insomniac would make posts on X, formerly Twitter, in support of the first responders and relief efforts, with both studios also being situated in California, in Santa Monica, and Los Angeles, respectively. I could read those, but you get the point. They all want to support first responder efforts, community relief efforts. They specify it more in the tweet. I'm trying to remember every single thing they covered. It's kind of it's generally broad help. What you would expect when you would think assistance to natural disasters. That's what they're aiming to do. Rebuilding efforts, of course. I'm assuming both, from human structures and the nature that was devastated during the entire wildfire. Either way, it's good to see them doing something. They should have done more money.
5 million, little light.
Yeah,
seems a little light, but I mean, $5 million's $5 million. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot. It's something.
But I mean, Sony.
You're Sony.
Taylor Swift donated $10 million.
Well, she doesn't have as much money. Who has more money?
Sony as a whole conglomerate has more money than Taylor Swift.
Oh, I didn't know that at first.
Taylor Swift does have a lot. She's a billionaire, so she's in that conversation.
Is she a billionaire?
She's a billionaire.
She's a billionaire.
Yeah.
I
mean, she just went on like one of the biggest tours of all time. Major.
The Eras tour. I know that because it's been shoved in my face.
She's got so many brand deals. She's the biggest artist of all time.
Yeah.
Like
today.
I mean, who compares? Michael Jackson? And
Frank Sinatra.
No.
Yeah,
no. Frank Sinatra is not on the level of a Taylor Swift or a Michael Jackson.
Freddie Mercury. Queen and Led Zeppelin. Definitely.
No, definitely not Led Zeppelin.
They were like the king at the time.
Freddie Mercury and Queen, you may have had an argument for, but of course that got cut short.
Elvis Presley.
Not likely.
Whatever.
Taylor Swift's fucking
Taylor
huge,
Swift fan,
dude.
Yeah, for now.
I mean, it's like Taylor Swift, Michael Jackson, and Beyonce. Shakira.
Beyonce, yeah.
Shakira.
Oh yeah, people in foreign countries like her a lot.
Oh yeah, Shakira's worldwide.
Yeah,
Shakira's more popular everywhere else except for America. Like
we're
like she's popular here, but like she's not like she's bigger in Brazil and bigger in
Japan. I think specifically likes her.
Yeah, I think Japan likes her a lot. Yeah, so yeah, she's arguably the biggest worldwide star in the world. But I mean, Taylor Swift is fucking gigantic.
Oh yeah,
like definitely the biggest American pop star probably right now. You could argue Beyonce, but I think Taylor's bigger. So yeah, it's a it's a tricky thing. What were we talking about? PlayStation relief wildfires. Yeah, the fires that have ravaged California, ravaged the LA County specifically, have been hugely devastating. Entire neighborhoods going up in smoke and burning down to the ground. Very, very disheartening. Very heartbreaking to see. So good on Sony for taking a step forward and helping relieve things. A company of that size, especially with so many dealings in California and the LA area specifically, you should be doing something. So at least they're putting their best foot forward. Did we get any reports of Xbox doing anything? I didn't see.
No, I did not see anything at all.
Xbox, Microsoft, you're an American company. What are you doing?
Well, the difference is that they have PlayStation headquartered in California. And I think that was why they were more compelled than not do something. Whereas Xbox, they can be like, where are they headquartered out of? Where are they from?
Washington?
Something like that? Yeah.
Something like that.
So, you have to realize something about this. They might care on a personal level. I have no doubt. Do they care enough to want to spend money? Not unless there's a specific reason, like being in the same state.
I mean, but you should spend that money.
You should, yes.
A lot of people were affected.
Of course, yeah. That's why even though it's not
games industry, I mean, the entire tech industry is focused in LA. So, kind of need to focus over there.
Which is why it's good they did something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good on
them, yeah.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your Two Penny Games cast. Make sure you ring off in the comments down below everything you think about with the Switch 2 announcement, with the PlayStation cancelizations of live service games. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you follow, and you drop a comment down below so that you can be part of the audience's Two Pennies next week in next week's episode. Again, I just pull whatever comment is the most interesting. Or whatever comments are the most interesting, right? So we only had one comment this week. We had 2 comments the week before. So make sure you drop. I think we had 3 comments the week before, actually. I think I read off 3 comments.
Up.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're popping. So
we're trying.
If you want to help us pop, if you want to, be mentioned in the pop off here, make sure you drop a comment down below on all platforms in all videos. I try my best to keep up with all of them. And until next time, have a great time. Follow us on Instagram. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Give it up for Donald Trump, the new president.